All right, guys, welcome to my first NV Rants. As you guys may know, we do a podcast on the Nick Vertucci Show, the channel you're on right now. My co-host is Veronica Brill, and we, have about 8 or 10 videos out now. We interview players, different folks. We've done some shows ourselves, and we also now have put out some videos that are just basically shorts, kind of skits, screwing around. You see those. And so now when you see this particular thumbnail, it'll just be me. And this is going to be the unedited. I'm using my cell phone. I'm not using all this wazoo technology I spent a load of money on for the show because I'm alone and I don't know how to use it. That's just like who I am. I'm stumped, okay? So this will be me. When I turn it off, you'll see my hand. I'm not gonna edit anything. If I screw something up, I'm just gonna keep talking, okay? So the purpose of these videos goes as follows. So over time, since I've had the poker show and some exposure to a bunch of folks viewing the show and watching me on the show, there's no secret that I have a background being an entrepreneur. My whole life since I was almost 22 years old, I've owned my own business and businesses along the way. That's all I've ever done. We'll get into some of that as we go. But I've had a lot of people ask me, they'll DM me, can you tell me about real estate? Can you tell me how you started your businesses, some of the success you've had, that type of thing. So on these particular rants, I'm going to be talking about some of that. I may talk poker. There might be a time I talk poker. I think today's show right here, or this here, is just going to be an overview of some of the success principles that I have found to make successful people, regardless of your education. I'm a K through 12 educated guy. Not that there's anything wrong with having a great education, wonderful, but I know a lot of folks that have every single degree you can possibly have, and they've never turned it into dollars. And let me be clear, I'm not just saying that success is dollars. That is for sure not true. There are many people that have very blessed, successful lives that you wouldn't call rich. Okay, so let's be clear on that. I do not think that equals success. But if we are going to talk success in regards to dollars or business, I feel there's some common denominators and that have served me. And as I observe a lot of the self-made successful people, by the way, I've noticed, like I said, some common denominators. So I want to talk about that. What I think I'll do on the next videos that I could put out, just came up with this today. A lot of you troll me because you think I'm promoting my book. I'm not. I don't really make any money on it at all. This was used as kind of a leader for my business when I had a lot of clients and students coming through. It's called Seven Figure Decisions, Having the Balls to Succeed. So what I think I'm going to do, not today, I'm going to give you an overview today of some things. If you're interested in anything that I say, then maybe you'll tune into the next one when you see the next one come up. If not, that's cool. Definitely don't waste your time with it. And so I think what I'll do is each show I'll go through a chapter. For example, the first chapter is on mentorship and why it's good to train. And I'll talk about that even in my poker career. Chapter 2 is money intelligence, life is a game of inches, pattern interruption. Chapter 5 is game time. I give a warning on chapter 6. It's called My Deal with El Diablo. Number 7 is rise and grind, then integrity, passion, see it, believe it, map it, execute it, and then there's a conclusion. There's basically 13 chapters and a conclusion. If you're interested in this, again, doesn't matter to me. I know you don't believe that because some of you like to troll. If you don't have any interest, fine, but it is on Amazon. It is a bestseller right there. We sold a bunch of them, and if you want to pick that up, you'll know what this book basically is. It's part of my life story in business, not all of it. And I tie that story into these success principles. So a lot of people, when they read something or they want to learn something, it's good to tie a story and put yourself inside that view that you're giving them. And this is just that. So that's what this is. We'll get to that on the coming episodes, or call them whatever, shows or clips or whatever the hell these are, but that's what we'll do. But I want to open this one by saying this, and this is going to be what most of this stuff in the book and some of the things I talk about success principles I think is designed around, and that is, do you know what your strongest muscle is? And guys, don't be creepy. Do you know what your strongest muscle is? It's your mind. Your mind right here is your strongest muscle. This is your key to success right here. That I believe. This is, again, this is my show and it's my opinion. You can disagree with me. That's great. I'm sure if you do, you'll put your comments in the comment section. That's great. I always love feedback. And again, it may resonate with you, it may not, I don't know. But let's get to it. And I have no particular order. I have about 5 or 6 bullet points. I used to run a radio show many years ago, a real estate radio show, and I ran the show the same way. I just had 5 or 10 bullet points, and I would just go. I don't script anything out. I don't write anything out. And I don't read anything off of paper. I may look down occasionally, look at a note, because I am old. And I do tend to forget. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so your mind is your strongest muscle. Now, why do I say that? I say that because when a lot of people ask me, hey, what's the secret to some success? I'm not the most successful person in the world, but I've done okay. I've had 30 years in business. I have a bunch of success, but as I'll get to this later, and I'm going to read something to you towards the end, I've had more failures than I've had successes, but most of the time, when you see someone that has some success in life, let's say business or dollars, usually their success speaks for itself and you see that, but you don't see the journey there. And a lot of times those journeys are rocky. And for me, they had been, and I had a lot of ups and downs, and I'll leave it at that for now until we get to different sections in this and we'll talk about it. But I believe that regardless of your education or any of that, I believe success comes from some basic principles. And one of those principles is this, and you've heard this a million times. This is like, you could probably go to a million channels on motivation and different things, and they'll tell you about overcoming fear, right? But the truth is fear is real, although it's not real, because fear is something you concoct in your head, and we put ourselves in that state of mind. It's real to us even though we create it, okay? And a lot of people will not take any calculated risks in life because they are afraid to fail. Their fear is failure. Their fear is what people think of them if they fail, and the consequences of failure. You can lose a lot of money if you're putting some money on the line with a business or an idea. You can lose a lot of things, right? So there's some things at stake when you take chances, but the upside of that, when there is success, and I say when there is success because there will be if you continue to push through to it, they're massive. They allow you to have some things that are more valuable than anything. And for me, one of the most valuable things for me is my time, right? To be able to control your time is really, really powerful. How many of you that are watching right now would completely agree with that? I mean, to have to get up at 6:30 in the morning and get on the freeway and drive somewhere to a job, whether you love it or not, it's a grind. To punch a clock is a grind. So, and again, let me be clear. If you are doing that, I am not looking down upon that. If you're happy, I always say this, man, do what makes you happy. I don't believe there is any value at any level if you are happy and that's where you need to be. Okay, I'm just making this video for the folks that are maybe in that position, but they want freedom, they want success, they want to control their time, right? And there's nothing more powerful than waking up, I always say, organically. Like, of course, if you're busy and you're hustling and you're working something, generally you're going to jump out of bed because you're excited to get there and do it and keep grinding and get it done. So I'm not suggesting that just sleeping in is the answer. I'm saying, but to not have to set an alarm clock and wake up organically, to be a dad who has raised 3 girls and be able to make my own schedule all those years while they were growing up, and to go to field days and field trips and to be able to do the things that a lot of people can't do because, when I would go to a field day or a field trip, I was surrounded by all the moms, generally speaking, because, the dads were not able to come. And I know both women and men work. I get that. And there were some men there, of course, yes. But, it wasn't a bad gig either. I was there with all the moms, so there's perks, right? Just kidding, I guess. I don't know. Everyone's so fucking sensitive, but yeah, it's true. So those are just some of the things, right? And the identity that you feel to create success is a pretty amazing feeling. Like, I'll give you an example. I've had many businesses, and along the episodes, I'll tell you about some of them. We'll get to it. I'll tell you about my technology business, how I grew that, and I lost it. And I had a property business where I was buying cash flow properties, and that was very successful. And I ran into some issues with that towards the end with some partners. I had my real estate training company who I eventually had to shut down and lost a bunch of money towards the end. So there's a lot of failure along the way with success, right? But as I say, your success speaks for itself. But we'll get to that and we'll talk about it. But like right now, when I say your identity and like being proud of something, as many of you watching this know, Ryan Feldman and I decided a couple years back that we were going to create the greatest live stream cash poker show in the world. Those were our words. And we'll talk more about that later in other episodes and that journey. I'll get to that because there's so much to talk about. But now accomplishing that feels fucking amazing. Like, it feels amazing to have went after something and to have accomplished it. And I'll talk about something that's in the book. It's see it, believe it, map it, and execute it. We'll get to that. And that goes along with things in your head that have to be done and then actions that have to be taken. I truly believe this. I believe that your thoughts today will become your future. Now, let me explain something to you. And I got into this topic on one of my recent shows. And Valerie and I were talking about it, and she at first didn't let me finish the thought, but I finally got there because I believe, like she believes, that I mentioned the book or the video or whatever, The Secret, which is that concept of manifesting, the positivity and manifesting success. Here's where I differ. I believe having a positive attitude, we'll talk about that, and having that type of energy is invaluable in anything, including poker. We'll talk about that too. And but I don't believe if you just think it, if you just try to manifest it, like it says somewhere in The Secret, how do they put it? If you think this or think positive, a check will show up in your mailbox. Bullshit. No check showing up in your mailbox unless you get your ass out there and start grinding and go figure out a way to make that check show up. But now along that way, being positive, seeing it, believing it, planning it, taking action, all that matters. Because if you're a negative dick, nobody's going to want to work with you. If you're a negative, there is a negative energy. How about for those of you that have played poker and you start to go down and the variance starts to hit you and you start saying shit like, oh, I can't win. Oh, I knew the spade was coming. Do I think the cards changed because you thought it? No. But I'm telling you, there is something in this universe that brings you negativity when you spew negativity, and the reverse, which is having a positive thought process. And that doesn't mean you got to walk around in la la land and just like be positive even when some shit's going down. I do not mean that. I am not the most positive guy. A lot of times I have to work on it. I have a propensity to have a glass half full and get anxiety and create fear within my system for failure and a lot of things. So this isn't just some shit that like comes easy to me. This is stuff I learned along the way that when we get to the first chapter in this book called Mentorship, I will tell you how somebody changed my life. I'm not going to do that today, so you're going to have to stand by. And by the way, in some of our videos, we've had 70,000 views. One 10,000, another one 32,000. The fuck are you guys doing? How are you not subbing? We got 6,000 subscriptions. If you're watching this video and you plan on watching another one and you're getting it, I always say this even on when I'm commentating on the show, you're getting 5 days a week poker free. At least you could do is hit the like button and subscribe. And so that matters to me because I want this show to continue. I want there to be a purpose for it. And so if you're watching this right now, take a second. Here, let's have a moment of silence. Go sub, go sub, go sub. Okay, thanks. Wasn't that easy? You should do that anyone you're watching, that you're supporting, that you're watching on a regular basis, because it helps us do that. I don't monetize this show at this point. At some point, I'd like to. I'm going to continue to do it anyways because I'm having the time of my life interviewing players and doing the podcast with Valerie, Vanna, Veronica, having a ball. So I'll continue to do it, but I would appreciate it. I really would appreciate it. Okay, so back to the point, which I'll have to try to remember what that point was. About being negative or positive. And I've said this before on one of my shows. If you take two people, one positive, one negative, and put them in a room for a few days, lock them in, and then you bring them out, chances are they're both coming out negative. Because negativity breeds negativity, and it's hard if you have a propensity to be negative anyways, and that will overtake you. So it is a grind, a challenge to protect this. This needs to be in protection at all times. It is your number one, strongest, most important muscle here that leads you down the path that you lead yourself down. I'm telling you, it's the absolute truth as far as my experience. And what I was saying is your today's thoughts and words will lead to your tomorrow, okay? So if you tell yourself, and this sounds so bullshit foo-foo-y, but I'm going to say, if you tell yourself that you're a loser and that you're not going to win, whether it's poker, business, life, relationships, I promise you're probably going to have that result. And I will just tell you really quick, when I was going something really tough, and I mentioned in my first chapter, mentorship, and when I was going through something and I was taught, because at the time in that chapter, I was losing my tech business. I went from 100 employees, about 40 million in revenue, white box systems integrator, 22 years old, just before 22, I started that business and blew it up. Right place, right time. What do they say? Rising tides or raise all boats or whatever. Yeah, that's true. I was in the right time for the tech, but I did have some people skills and some things that I think also contributed to that success. Timing was one of them, yes. But I'll say this. It is no doubt that during that time when I was at the top peak and then the dot-com crash hit and I literally hung on to my business way too long. I'll talk about that in another show. And some of you, if you have businesses that are just going this way, sometimes it's good to get out. I read a book called Who Moved My Cheese? We'll talk about it later, and it had a profound effect on me. But just to paint the picture for you real quickly because we're going to get to that another time, I went millions in debt, okay? I had 2 kids at the time and one on the way, K through 12 education, and I was losing a business that I refused to let go out of stubbornness and nostalgia and employees who later could give 2 shits about really me. And we're going to talk about that too if you're an entrepreneur at some point, because you should take care of your employees. You should treat them like it's their own business and treat them with the respect you would treat yourself. But at the same time, you got to protect yourself as a business owner and protect the mothership. We'll talk about it later in another show. And I was millions of dollars in debt. I at one point would be crying my way on the way to work because I couldn't make payroll. I was in a forbearance agreement with the bank. I was millions in debt, and like I said, a K through 12 education with 2 kids and one on the way. I was fucking leveled. And somebody taught me what I was doing wrong. Not that I still wouldn't have wound up in that same position, because sometimes there's certain elements in the society, life, economy that you're not gonna out positive that shit. But when it happens, you need to know how to dig your way out, or you need to recognize it. And I tell you what, when we get to that first chapter another time, I'm going to explain to you how it changed my life, okay? And everything I did after that. And I'll tell you, I had a lot of downturns after that where I stayed kind of in the tank. And then I remembered, shit, I got to go back to the basics. As a matter of fact, I got to go back to the basics a lot because this does not come natural to me, okay? So I want you to understand that. So just understand that. And your words, you can speak blessings or curses. So the things you say about yourself are literally going into your core, and they are going out into the wherever the fuck it is, and it's somehow coming back to you negatively. That's just my experience. And the reverse is, of course, the reverse. And also the things you say to other people. Like, for example, a lot of people have problems becoming successful because of, give you one example, let's say in your childhood, you have parents that weren't supportive, or they told you negative shit, and that's the way they parented. Or maybe they were just abusive. I don't know. But a lot of times we're, at those ages, young ages, we're being formed on who we are, our character, our identity, all these things. And so a lot of times people are trying to dig themselves out of this mental hole just because they were, not off to a great start with how they were raised. And so that's why in some of these chapters, and we'll get to later, I talk about something called pattern interruption. And that is when you think, I'm going to fail, I'm no good, I can't do this, you have to replace that thought with something else. And you got to replace it almost sometimes by the minute. And then as it starts to sink in, and you can suppress that fear, that anxiety, those negative things, and replace it with the things that should be in there. But it's a constant fight because they want to come back up because they're in your core. Sometimes it's really a lifetime process, but that's why you got to work it. Like, you got to work it. You got to say, and a lot of you guys are just, if you want to bail out on this part, go ahead and don't watch. But I literally would pattern interrupt some tough times in my life where I would literally talk to myself. And one of the things I would say, and we'll talk about it later when we get to these chapters in the book, is I would say, bullshit, I'm the best in this business. And this was a time when I was being attacked by 3 different angles. My business was stripped from me in a different business, not the tech business. I had some emotional attachment and some emotional things and friendships and things that were attached to it. And when I started my training business, I literally had to say that out loud when I'd be driving, thinking, talking in the mirror, because I had to reconvince myself, but you don't know the details, so it may mean nothing to you unless you hear the story, which you will hear in one of these shows. Like I said, I'll go chapter by chapter. And if it wasn't for some of those things that I was taught by a mentor, someone who taught me how to retrain this. Originally, it was just to train me in real estate. And then something really crazy happened, and that person became way bigger than that to me when he sat me down and said, Nick, you got to get your fucking mind straight and your shit together. Again, I'm not going to go any further with it than that because it's a whole long story. And that was when it started for me to really become as strong as I could up here and go into a beast mode. And believe me, it's a struggle even today to stay in that when things, when shit hits the fan sometimes. And I'll say this too, and I believe this. I believe if you take all the self-made, remember, if it's a trust fund shit, I don't know. I'm K through 12, I came from nothing. That's all I know. So I'm just going to say, if you're all the self-made people in this world who become successful financially, because that's what I'm talking about right now, we could pivot this into relationships, we could pivot this into so many other things. But let's just talk about business success and success principles in that respect. And I believe this. If you took all the self-made successful people in the world and you stripped them of their wealth, and you gave them some ability, whatever, to regain it back, which means they still have their health, but you let them keep this and what got them there the first time and all their success principles and all the common denominators for success, which we will totally get into in other episodes. I believe that in a certain amount of time, I don't know what that is, that all those people you took the wealth from will rise back to the top. Because I've often said this. Now, I know I look good. I get that. This is hard to believe, but I'm 56 years old. That's a joke. Whatever. That's free, so you can go in the comments and troll me. But I do believe this. If you allowed me to keep everything I know, I would give every penny of my wealth right now. It's not bad. It's not a bad number, but I'd give it. It'd be hard to do because I worked for it myself if I could gain 20 or 30 years back. So if someone could make that trade and had a magic wand, deal's done. You know why? But part of the deal is I have to keep that. I don't want to go through all this shit again trying to figure it out because that was the journey. That's why they say some people like your elders they have wisdom. I believe that shit now because that's just life experience and all experience. So if I could keep what I know, you can have it all. Just give me 20. 30 would be the nuts, but 20, I'd still do it, okay? And I'd have 10x what I have right now, guaranteed. Because there is a wealth mentality and there is a poverty mentality. And we'll talk about both of them. And I do believe if you gave a lot of the people with poverty mentality a bunch of dough, some of them may keep it, get lucky, invest right, but most of them will lose it, okay? Or not know what the hell to do with it, that's for sure. And I don't care if you're the smartest person in the room. I don't care if you could split the atom. Really don't care. I don't care how many degrees you spit down at me. It has nothing to do with success because think about it. You could give 10 people the same college education. Pick whatever degree you want. I don't give a shit. And you can give them the same professors, the same curriculum, and the same effing degree that's on the wall. And why is it that only a hand out of that 10, maybe a few are successful, like really successful, and the rest aren't? They have the same education. But then even in that handful, you have like 1 or 2 that just take it to levels that like nobody could even imagine. Is that just because they're smarter? No. I mean, if they're a genius and they, patent something and I don't know, they get paid millions of dollars because they're the only one that knows how to code something, then whatever. Don't start that shit with me. I'm just talking in general. Why is that? Because there are some success principles that those people that know, have learned, and that are willing to put into play to have that kind of success. I believe that. Because a lot of times someone will say, man, you've had these businesses, well, you just get lucky. Fucking nothing to do with luck. Nothing. That's the stupidest shit that anyone could say. You must just keep getting lucky. Yeah, I keep getting lucky. And guess what? I keep grinding my balls off, and I keep taking the hits, and I keep dusting myself up, my boots off, and I go back at it every time I failed, which is more than I've succeeded. Okay? Because I had the ability to do that because of what I learned. Because believe me, there was a couple times back in the first time I lost everything in that computer tech business where I thought I'd be better off not here. So that's where I was in my mentality. So let's just get it straight how low I was. Okay? And that's this, by the way, if that's you, that's the stupidest thing you could ever think in your life. Okay? Because nothing matters that much. And I don't care how far you're in debt. I don't care what you're going through. This shit can get better. Okay? And I'll tell you what right now, if you take your shit sandwich right now, if you happen to have one and you're eating one right now, go take a look at someone else's shit sandwich. And I bet you there's a lot that are have a lot more shit in them. Okay? And I just say that because I want you to understand it's the long haul here. Okay? All right. Now, I want to talk about belief systems, which goes along with everything I'm saying. And that belief system does come from here and training yourself and filling yourself with the right things and shunning the negative shit out of there and protecting your asset. In 1952, there was a guy, his name was Roger Bannister. He's a runner. Doesn't relate to me because I don't have a runner's body. The only time I run is to try to get to the front of the line of like a buffet, okay? Or that type of shit. So, but Roger was a runner, okay? And back then, nobody had ran a 4-minute mile. It was unattainable, okay? Well, Roger trained like a runner. He did all the stuff that runners do, whatever that is, all the training, physical, all that shit. But he realized something, that one of the muscles he had to train even harder was this, his noggin, his brain, his mind. And Roger started going through some mind training, and he started visualizing himself running the 4-minute mile and crossing that line when it was under 4 minutes. And he continued to work that muscle. And he understood that at some point when his legs were burning to the point of give up or slow down, how he could train his mind to push through that pain because he wasn't going to die. It just was going to push through it to the point to where he got over that hump. If you want to research him, you can talk, figure all the other details out. And In 1952, Roger Bannister was the first one to run a 4-minute mile. Check this out. White guy. Okay? Go think. Let that set in. Okay? But why? Because he believed he could do it. And he trained his body and his mind to do that, and he accomplished it. Guess what happened not long after that? I don't know how many months. I don't know. I don't have the stats. I don't care. But guess what happened not long after that? Take a minute. More runners started running the 4-minute mile. Why? Because this dope did it. And if he could do it, well, I can do it. And what is that? That's your belief system. So you have to figure out a way to raise your belief system, which I'm going to talk about in another episode. Because if I talked about all these pieces that branch off of everything I say, we'd be here for 4 hours and it just wouldn't connect. So that's why I'm going to go piece by piece as I do these NV rants. Okay? And people started running them because they believed they could do it. Now they know it was obtainable. That's what they needed, is the belief. And here's another thing about limitations, and some of you have heard this, some of you have heard this story. This isn't any genius thing I'm coming up with, it's just something to show you how it works. There's something called the elephant on the string, okay? So for a lot of you animal activists, I don't need your shit. So when I say this, this is just an analogy to make a point, okay? It's gonna be about elephants. I like elephants. I think elephants are cool, okay? So I don't condone what I'm going to tell you here, so please, it's like when I went to the rodeo. I didn't fucking ride the bulls. I just ate popcorn and watched people ride them. Get off my ass, okay? All right, so here it is. To train elephants, apparently, you have to tame them, and a lot easier taming a baby elephant than taking a wild elephant that's at its peak and trying to train it. I don't know if that's doable because I'm not an elephant trainer, but they take baby elephants and they put some type of chain or rope or something around one of its legs, and then they stake it into the ground. Now, this elephant does not want to be chained down, so it fights, it pulls, it falls, it rolls over, it tugs. And I don't know how long it does this, what the process is. I don't know, a day, a week, a month, I don't know. But all I know is it just doesn't want to be connected to that. And if I'm being honest, I don't think it's right. I don't need to see an elephant sit on a box and bounce a ball. To me, I'd rather the elephant should just be happy and be out in the wild. So I do agree with that. So please leave me alone with all that shit, okay? But this is just the reality. So sometimes we got to grow up and live in what the reality is. So the reality is, at some point, that elephant gives up. It does not believe anymore that anything it does is going to give it the freedom that it was used to. And it just gives up. It no longer pulls, tugs, rolls around, and maybe even sometimes hurts itself trying to get out of there and get it off and get away. Now, the elephant can be trained, and they don't even have to stake it into the ground to have something around its leg. They just have to have something around its leg, and it just will not try anymore because it no longer believes that it could free itself. And that's what happens to us. We have that first failure in business. We have that first failure at entrepreneurship, or maybe 2, or whatever it is, and then we're just like, I can't do it. And you don't believe it. You believe that you will never do it. So you might as well not even try, just like the baby elephant, because you just know that it's not going to happen. But guess what? That's horseshit. That's just your belief system, okay? So we're going to talk more about that in the coming episodes and shows because I think it's really paramount in success. And when I was teaching and public speaking, I did a thing, 7 success principles. I'll go pull that up, and we'll do that one day too. And they're very simple. And when you see them, it's all stuff you've heard. There is nothing wazoo in there. But the simple things are the common denominators, I believe, of having success in business and in life. I'll close on this today. and then we'll talk about it because this is 4 chapters in my book. See it, believe it, map it, execute it. So let's talk about see it for a second, and we'll go more into that when we actually go into that chapter. The first thing you or anyone, I believe, if they have a goal, something they want to accomplish or be, well, you have to see where you're going. You have to see it. I'll give you an example. When I mentioned starting Hustler Casino Live, high stakes poker productions, I literally would visualize and see how I'm talking for myself, of course Ryan is included, so when I say I, it's just me speaking for myself. This is a we thing with Ryan and I. But I had to see what I wanted to build and how I wanted to build it. And I had to visualize actually that happening and what I wanted to build and become. And I'll tell you this before I go on with that. One of the things that I do, I just thought of it right now, one of the things I do, and I've done this my whole life, I don't do it at night, because if you do this at night before you try to sleep, you won't sleep. What I try to do at night before I sleep is think of things that calm me. And even though poker is not easy, sometimes I think about poker and hands, and I visualize like winning in hands and all this shit with certain players. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I start to visualize that, or I think of something really cool, or my kids, and then I relax, I go to sleep. I do not want to think about grinding and building and being successful and all the steps I have to take and all that shit, because but I do that in the morning. So a lot of times when I wake up, before I get out of bed, I will linger a little bit, and I will start, if I'm building a business, I will morning daydream about not only what I have to do that day, but what it looks like in the end zone when it's over. And I'll continually just think about these things, and I'll see them, and I'll make myself see them where they actually become real, where I wonder if it's even happened yet. And I just keep thinking and seeing. And then the second one is believe it. See it, then you got to believe it. And here's the thing, and I'm talking like it's hard to believe something that hasn't happened yet. And especially if you have a propensity to be negative, or you've had failures, and sometimes you almost have to even fake it till you make it. But if you don't believe it, doesn't matter if your mom believes it, your wife believes it, your best friend believes it. If deep down in your core, you can't believe it, it's not going to happen. So you have to work this step and the things that go along with getting yourself to a point to have a strong enough mind to believe it. Because once you believe it, who gives a shit when anyone else believes? It's what you think. Because there are a lot of naysayers and a lot of people that want to strip you from your success. And you know why they want to do that, or they don't want you to have success? Even if they're looking you in the eye and telling you, oh, I hope it works. Is because misery loves company. That's true. And people covet success, and they will try to take these things away from you and block you. There'll be obstacles. So you got to get through that shit, and you got to be the one in the belief system, no matter what anyone says. Okay? And the next one is map it. Map it means you have to have a plan. And map it means it has to be a real plan. So I use this analogy, like, no matter how much I could see or want to believe that I could be a professional basketball player, that's a fucking stupid plan. Because I don't have the hops. Okay? No. I don't care how much I go into the lab, the tank, and try to figure out how to see and believe that shit. Not going to happen. So your plan has to be real. It has to make sense. And that doesn't mean it doesn't have to be lofty. It could be lofty. It just has to be real. Okay? Because I think you can accomplish anything if you put your mind to it, except things that physically maybe you can't do. Okay? So map it. You have to have a plan. It has to make sense. So this stuff that you're seeing and believing, you have to put in some type of order. And I'm lucky because I'm kind of OCD. So one of my things is building systems and plans. There's a book called E-Myth. I think they have E-Myth 2. It's about systems. Systems are paramount in your business. We'll talk about that shit later, okay? But you got to have a plan. You got to have it mapped out. And you got to follow that map as you go and check those things off and make sure you're doing it. And then sometimes you got to redirect, and your map changes as you're learning, going along that journey to build whatever business or product or idea that you have. And then the last thing is really cliche, because most people say, gotta take action. And I call it execute it, which is taking action. And we'll talk about taking action and momentum and building belief in another show. But you got to execute. Because see, here's the thing. If you really saw it, and you really got a point to where you believed it, and then you really have a good viable plan, but you don't do anything, all you have is a plan, a good idea, a good dream. It ain't shit until you execute. And you keep executing, and you keep executing, okay? See it, believe it, map it, execute it. And that is in this book, and I will be going chapter by chapter for this, for no other reason other than a lot of people have asked me, what are the principles of success? How did you do this? How did you do that? So I'm going to do this. And plus, I kind of dig talking about it because somebody did this for me. And that's chapter 1. And it changed the trajectory of my life financially and honestly in a lot of other ways too for the rest of my life. So I'm going to read you something, and we're going to close on this. 2 things. The first one is I copied this from somewhere. It's totally plagiarized. It's on my Instagram, so I printed it so I could read it. Someone else had it written, but I stole it because I loved it. And it says, people may hate you for being different and not living by society's standards, but deep down, they wish they had the courage to do the same. And that's true because society tells us to be in a certain box, right? Generally speaking, go get an education, go get your degree, become a doctor, do this this way. Nothing wrong with that. Go get your degree and go be a doctor. We need doctors. So if you're good at that shit, go do that. Do it and be good at it, okay? And that's another thing. If you do something, be really good at it. We'll talk about that in another episode. But I know this. I was told that, and I know I didn't like school and wasn't very good at it. I wasn't stupid. I'm definitely, even though you may think so, I'm not stupid, okay? But I tried. I signed up, Cal State, Fullerton, JC, some shit, and I had all these classes, and I'm like going from class to class going, what the fuck am I doing? This doesn't compute for me. And so what I did was I dropped all my classes before they became like Fs, because I think if I remember right, if you drop them, you don't get to fail. So I'm like, I'm fucking dropping this shit. I'll circle back later. But I never did. And we'll talk more about that later because I realized, and I don't know how instinctually I knew this, but I couldn't be in that box. And I'll tell you this, if I was in that box and I was in that box now, I'd be a miserable fuck because it wasn't for me, you know? I've often told people that I literally would give up so much EV to do my own thing, even if I knew the other thing that wasn't my own thing or that I had to go do things that I didn't want to do, even if it was 10x. I wouldn't do it. So that's all I'll say on that. But that's up to you, you know? Whatever you have to, if you're in that box and that fits you, and you're going to be like a surgeon, God bless you. Like, do it. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of guys out there and gals that those type of careers aren't for them. They need to do something else. Some people are artists, but they're forced into like sitting into a cubicle. And I always say this, man, if you do what you love, you know, again, let's be real. If you do what you love, that means you're going to go sit on the beach and paint, but you're not going to do anything else, like try to sell it, and you're not good at it. Nothing's going to happen. You're just going to get a nice sun tan, and you'll paint, but you're going to be broke, okay? But with that said, if you do have a good plan and you do something you love, the money will follow. Ryan and I didn't start this podcast to make a bunch of money. There's podcasts. It has nothing to do with the podcast. Poker show. That just will come. I'm not worried about it. Okay? So do what you love. Have the balls to do it and grind it out. Now I'm going to read something to you and we're going to close on this. And this is something that I read to my students at the end of our training, okay? And it really hits the target for me. And it's also, I don't know if I posted it, but if I didn't, I'll do it. It's called The Entrepreneur, okay? So I'm going to read it to you. The Entrepreneur. Nobody knows the time put in. Nobody knows the sacrifices made. Nobody knows the rejection. Well, I know this. Nobody knows the criticisms. Nobody knows the empty bank accounts getting there. And nobody knows the fear that had to be fought and conquered. And nobody knows the sleepless nights putting together your vision. But someday, your success will absolutely speak for itself. You just got to grind it out. Okay, that is the very first NV solo rant. Call it whatever you want. It's what first thing I thought of was I just named it that. And if you like it, please subscribe. I would really appreciate that, and hit the like button. If you don't, I honestly mean this, don't. And then you don't have to watch anymore. And everyone's happy. But if you do, I would really appreciate it. And for those of you that this did help, I'm glad that it helped you, because someone helped me. And I have so much more to tell you, show you, and go over with you if you are interested. So hit that sub button. Be ready for the next episode. We're going to dig into chapter 1 and go all the way through the conclusion, through 13 or 14 chapters together. Okay? And that's it. Now, you know what I'm going to say, right? NV out. And because this is unedited, I'm going right for the red button. See it right there? Right there, right there. Goodbye.